Welcome to She's Not Trendy. I'm your host, Tiara.
I'm Tanya.
I'm Kimber.
And today we're going to start our show, as always, with our deal breaker. And we want to also acknowledge that October is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so our deal breaker is going to center around that. So, you ready, ladies?
Ready.
All right, so the deal breaker today is that you have an adult child that has a pattern of domestic violence and abuse toward their significant other, and they bring their new significant other to a family dinner, and one of your siblings recognizes that significant other as a friend's child, and they go back and they let their friend know that, hey, your son daughter is dating my niece nephew, and they have a habit of violence and abuse in relationships, and I would suggest that they end this relationship, and your adult child comes back to you because it caused conflict between them and their significant other, and you and your sibling get in a conversation or argument about it. Would that be a deal breaker for you?
Well, for me, I don't think it would be a deal breaker. And the reason being is I always taught my kids that you don't hit on any person at all.
Okay.
And one reason is because my grandmother was abused.
Okay.
And one thing she had mentioned to me is never, ever put your hands on anyone, or they put them hands on them.
Yeah.
If they do, leave. It's not worth it. My grandmother was abused for a long time, and she actually had to get in a safe place. And what she did was move to another state. She's originally from Virginia. That being said, if my sibling would mention it, I'd be like, okay, that's great. Maybe I didn't have the opportunity to do so. You know.
So you would be happy that they mentioned
Absolutely,
it? Okay.
I would be happy if my sibling had mentioned that. But to say that, I probably would say that.
Okay.
Wait a minute. You know what you're getting yourself in. This is what's going on with my child. I'm giving them help.
Okay.
And this is where they stand.
Okay.
And this is your choice. But I, would just address it.
Okay.
Wouldn't wait or anything.
Okay, so you would caution the significant other
Absolutely.
against your child's actions.
Absolutely.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
So you're saying is there is a deal breaker with myself and the sibling that went and told the friend's parent, the significant other parent. I don't think it's a deal breaker. I mean, that person's looking out for the well-being of that new significant other that probably doesn't know what they're entering into as of right now. But it all depends on, that would be me, right? It all depends on in a scenario where the two siblings started out from. If they already had a rocky relationship, that could just be like some, fire starter on the fire, and ignite, some other things. But I think they're just looking out for the well-being of the new person that's entering into the situation and that has no clue of the goings on that with the patterns that you say has been. So I wouldn't be mad at my sibling for warning me. It all depends on how it was done. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's a very, serious topic. So you don't want
Very
someone
touchy.
it can go in a few different directions depending on where the person is in that, toxic space that they're in as far as being abusive and all of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would agree that I probably would warn that other person as well. I would want to let that person know, like, my son, my daughter, whatever it is, has a history of abuse, and this is what the situation is. I mean, I know a lot of times we make light of when it's a female hitting a man.
But it's very real.
But it's very real.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is very real. You know, like females can be very violent as well.
Yeah.
But I think that in that situation, I would have wanted my sibling to have come to me first, because if this is the first time I'm meeting that young lady or young man, then I haven't had the opportunity to. But I could see how people in the family could be fed up, you know, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, this person is going to be the next victim or something like that." And I think that if they're friends with somebody that, you know, they would have an obligation as well to tell that person. But I do think that they should come to the sibling first.
Yeah, because if things go left, that's going to affect their friendship as well. It's some family dynamics. So it's just a messy situation. The best thing is just to warn whoever's involved, and then try your best to get that person some help. Like you had mentioned, like your child is
Well, it seems like we all agree.
I think this is the first. We all agree on a deal breaker.
But that's funny. There was a video, and I wish I would have showed it to you ladies earlier. But there was a video. Did you ever get a chance? Did it ever load for you?
No.
Okay. So I shared it in the group. Did you see it? No. Okay. So I shared the video in the group. But the video was, there was a young lady, and she looked like she was agitated about something or upset, maybe embarrassed. This was the look that she had. She was at a bar, in a bar kind of restaurant scene, and a young man came in. And when the young man came in, she stormed toward him, and she went to hit him. And he hit her back with such force that her head flew back and her body flew, and she hit the ground.
What?
Wow.
Now, you know, I go to the comments, so I want to see these comments. Like, what are people saying? And to be honest, I want to say like 90% of the comments were like saying she learned today. I mean, men
making a joke of it.
Well, you know, like she shouldn't have hit him. You know, if like, you know, all of these kind of things. Like, if you're woman enough to hit a man, then you're woman enough to get hit back. You know, all of these things. There was very few men that said a man should never hit a woman. Walk away. So in that, I'm gonna pose a question before we move on to our topic. Do you think that if a woman is hitting a man, that man has a right to retaliate and hit that woman back?
I don't think so.
Okay.
That goes to what I said before. No one should be hitting each
Absolutely.
other. First and foremost, what was going on with this young lady for her to even be abusive? I mean, who was this?
But in that moment, just think about in the moment, your son is dating a woman, and, you know, she smacks him or she hits him.
So it was, no, you said you seen the video, right?
I saw the video.
And that's what happened. Was this a real video?
It was a real video. But it looked like
that man.
It looked like it was somebody that she knew, that she was upset with, and when he came in, it was like she was saying, like the way her body language and whatever she was saying, it looked like they had a previous argument.
Okay.
Right. And she went to him and she went to slap him. I don't know if her slap made contact with his face. I couldn't tell, but I do know that he had smacked her back really hard, and
to where she flew and fell.
She flew.
Yeah,
she
that's
fell, like you could see her underwear, and she was dazed. Okay, there was another man sitting on a bar stool that kind of like broke her fall. He just sat there. He looked down, as the look on his face was kind of like, oh, well, you know, you hit him first. That was the look. Like,
wow.
Oh,
that's
wow.
sickening. That's just a sickening environment.
So what do we teach our sons then? Because there's a lot of people who may have mixed feelings. What do you teach your son if a woman hits that man?
No, I believe that violence should not be you know, especially retaliation of violence, right? If someone attacks you, I don't think you just firing back should be your immediate. But you're also not going to sit there and just be a victim.
Absolutely.
You know, so as a man, there are restraint techniques. You can get out of there. You know, there's several things you can do besides just firing back and hitting a woman, especially with such force. Like, that's really awful. And then the fact that it was video, that, like, who are these people that catch these things?
So I think that what happened was, it looked like when the video started, she was distressed. So I don't know, somebody was like kind of like there for like the team, so it was going to happen next.
Yeah, it was probably like a previous
on thing, and that was a clip that they just took that clip out of it, because it looked like she was upset and waiting for him to walk back in. Now, here's the thing. I think that this is not sexist, me saying a man, if a woman hits a man should not hit a woman back. That's not sexist. I think that most men are stronger than women. And the force that's going to retaliate to that woman, right, could be used in the other way to like restrain yourself. And my sister and I, we were talking about it earlier. She's not here. We were talking about it earlier. And she was saying, you know, like in those kind of situations, oftentimes when a man hits a woman back like that, he doesn't care about her anyway. So he should just walk away because it's going to teach her that same lesson, right? It's going to teach her that you can't put your hands on me and have a relationship with me. And if a man hits a woman back like that without care, most often, he doesn't really value her anyway, right?
I agree.
So I know we have to go to break and we'll be right back with our...
We must secure our families. KFG Life Insurance Specialist is a company that partnered with 15 of the top life insurance companies to ensure you get the best pricing, knowledge, and products to suit your family needs. Some people believe that term insurance is better than whole life insurance, while others feel the complete opposite. Some may feel like universal life is the way to go, and others may feel it's better to have a whole life policy. The truth is, neither of the products are better. One just may be more suitable for your family. Our life insurance specialists are not biased, as they are partnered with several life insurance companies. This ensures our clients get the best pricing, education, and products that are suitable for their families. Let KFG Life Insurance Specialist make these decisions easier for you and your family. Our office is located at Security Square Mall, next to Burlington, in the CoyoteMan Show Network. Please call to make an appointment at 443-400-5224 or go to www.lifeinsurancespecialist.org. That's www.lifeinsurancespecialist.org. Let KFG Life Insurance Specialist help you prepare your family in the present, because the future is not promised. Act now.
Welcome back to She's Not Trendy. We're going to continue with our topic, and we were talking about abuse. We're not going to talk completely about abuse today, but we do want to talk about like counseling. And so after a person may go through an abusive relationship or anytime in a relationship, there's always like preventative counseling, there's relationship counseling, there's counseling to deal with traumatic issues and mental health. You know, a lot of times people don't address their mental health. So we want to talk about counseling. And what do you think that when people are in abusive relationships, whether they're abuser or the person that is being abused, do you think that counseling would actually assist this person?
Yes. Okay. I think counseling is very important because it provides you several resources. One of the resources that I do know is that we often build a rapport with this person, and we give them time to basically speak about what's going on with themselves, because a lot of times it's fear, it's low self-esteem with themselves, their upbringing, and then once we build that rapport, we then find a safe place for that person. We send them there because often that person, like a significant other or a boyfriend, usually they find the place where they are, like it could be counseling because they out like side looking or whatever. So they still would, like, if I'm counseling someone, they still go back, but it's a transition. Yeah. Where we'll make sure that this person, significant other or boyfriend, don't know that they are transitioning to a safe place.
Oh, okay.
Once we build that safe environment and build that person self-esteem, and we'll just let them go, and then they would not find them. But I do think counseling is very important. If anyone is being abused, please seek counseling. It's very critical when you are being abused because a lot of people don't make it. They actually not here a lot of people,
Yeah.
you know, because of that. And they could put in police reports, what you call protective orders, and
Yeah.
still, you know,
Yeah.
actually die.
Yeah.
Right.
And we often think that, you know, the police is a safe net as well, but sometimes they're not.
I
Right.
like how you were saying there's like a discrete transition period that happens, because a lot of time when the police are called, the abuser knows, and then you
Exactly.
get beat or hurt even worse because you've called someone for help. So it's good to know that there is a discrete transition of moving away from the person or the issue that's in place that people can go to for help. Wow.
Yes,
Didn't realize
it's
that.
very important to get that because a lot of people don't know that they can come and then we, you know, have a safe environment for them to go.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then build that self-esteem because a lot of times they don't want to go, but you got to build their self-esteem.
Yeah, well, a lot of times in the abusive situations, that's a part of how the abuse happens. The abuser, they break down the person.
Exactly.
They break them down, and then they're accepting of the abuse, and they make them think this is what normal looks like, right? So yeah, building them back up, you know, letting them know that this is not where you should be down this low, and yeah, that's good to know.
And a lot of times it's manipulation.
Yeah,
where,
absolutely, control.
You know, control as well. They advise, you know, abuse them and then take them out or buy them an item that they love or take them on a fancy vacation.
Yeah,
and a lot of these women, you know, enjoy that. Like, okay, but it's not healthy.
Yeah,
Correct.
It's really not healthy. And they tend to find that out later down the line.
Right. That's correct. Because a lot of times, I like you touched on the fact that it could be like fear and low self-esteem. There's always a root cause to why people accept abuse.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Because a strong, healthy person is not going to accept abuse from someone. Right. Now, we're not talking about extreme cases where you see the abuse and this person is stalking you and you just can't get away. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people that can leave, but they don't choose to leave, right? Because they like that high that they get. You know, a lot of times people like the fact that when they're after they're abused, there's a high that they get from that person, like building them back up or doing all those nice things, you know, to them, for them. So talking about that, but just talking about counseling and relationships and communication. And I think that we have to see like red flags, how people communicate with you. And once you see like how people communicate, like if people are have a lot of built up aggression and anger and they can't have a reasonable conversations and communication, or they can't respect your space or your boundaries or certain things like that, if they are you know, wanting to go through your phone. If they, it doesn't have to always be physical. It doesn't have to be physical abuse. It could just be, you know,
mental or emotional. Yes, all kinds of abuse. But I think one thing that needs to happen is a transition of mindset, right? Especially in our community. Like therapy and counseling and all that for so long was like frowned upon. It was frowned upon, or a person's crazy, quote unquote, if they're going to seek counseling or have to go talk to someone. But I think it's just healthy. It's just healthy, and so we have to kind of shift, if you will, the way that we are viewing, and even for our children, presenting it to them. You know, as far as that therapy, counseling, all of those things, there's nothing wrong with it. Most of the most successful people in this world, they have a therapist, a counselor. You know, they have I mean, that's how they get to levels of success. There has to be someone else there that is well versed, that are trained in certain areas, that can help you see things from a different perspective to help you grow or get into a certain balance. You know what I mean?
Sorry, I had a thought. But when I was in school, and I was going to school initially for social work, like Tanya did. That's how we met, actually.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But when I got to a certain space, I said, you know what? When I got to a certain space in my life, I said, I was taking communication classes and communication courses, and what I saw what I saw was that communication courses, people want to be listened to. And we did a lot of interpersonal communication. And it made me change from wanting to be in counseling, because I said, a lot of people just need to be listened to. And so therapy can be very refreshing. If you have that person that's calling you on the phone, don't try to fix it. Don't try to, you shouldn't be with that person. They already know that. Sometimes just listening to people, making sure that they're valuable, that you doing reflective listening, knowing that they're heard. You know what I mean? Those things I said, this is what people really need. And I did not want to be in a space of diagnosing people with different type of I don't know what you call them, but disorders, right? You don't want to be in a space of diagnosing people with disorders when a lot of people can really be healed through the technique of just listening, So I do feel as though communication is important. And even before we get in relationships or marriage, and I want to touch on this because our Kimber will not be here for the next couple of weeks because she will be getting married. And so I wanted to take the opportunity, because I didn't really want to focus on domestic violence today, but I want to take the opportunity to talk about, since we talk about relationships so much, to talk about some of the things that you're learning and your premarital counseling, so you can kind of share some of those things for people that are in just relationships, and if they want to move forward with that kind of.
Yeah, so premarital counseling is just another aspect to the counseling, right? And it's protocol in most cases, depending on who's marrying you, they require you to do a certain amount of sessions of the counseling. And, we were doing it because that's what we supposed to be doing and everything. But I have actually found it very beneficial.
Okay.
I really have. I'm surprised how beneficial I've found it. And again, ours is more from a Christian aspect. The person that is actually marrying us is who's doing the counseling.
Correct.
And it really just gives another voice to the situation. Like, I could say something 12 times, literally. I don't know where I got that number from, but yeah, just roll with me for a minute. So I could say something 12 times, right? And it's like, okay. It's not really being absorbed, but coming from someone else, they're able to say it from a different perspective and show your significant other why or how or this should be the case because X, Y, and Z. And it's been really amazing just to have that third party to come in and give a different perspective, shift things a little bit. And from an unbiased position, obviously, it really has been good. So some of the things that we've talked about so far is communication, which is beneficial for anything, any type of relationship, whether it's a co-worker, whoever, family members, significant other, communication. We've talked about boundaries. This was a really good one.
Okay.
Boundaries, and boundaries is a broad topic. So it was they're clapping. Yeah, boundaries was a good one because I was thinking about little, kind of petty things,
Yes.
Oh, you used my towel, or you touched my pillow, or just little crybaby things. But it really goes far and wide. What do you do when the boundaries that come into play are ones that can definitely shake or discontinue the relationship,
right?
Or when you've been with someone so long, but then down the line, boundaries that are triggered from childhood or family upbringing, it really goes far and wide, which we did not consider.
What type of boundaries do you think would discontinue a relationship?
That's the thing. You never know what can be triggered
Right.
and come up. Again, a lot of people go through childhood trauma that they don't even realize.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then you move forward in life with that person connected permanently. And one day, one season, 1 year, something triggers something and it comes up, but it's nothing that your relationship has ever seen before. So what do you do in those cases? You know what I mean? So, so it gives a lot to think about, but you just keep going back to scripture, to praying, to seeking help when these things arise. You know what I mean? Because how can you plan for the unforeseen?
Do you think though that, because I've never been in relationship counseling, but like when I watch reality shows sometimes, and I see that they go through the counseling, I'm saying, is this really help? Like, I know counseling helps, but like, is this something that is really helping, or is this like bringing about things or hashing things up that may not have come up? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a petty. I don't feel like I'm a petty person, right? So like, because I really don't. I know it's bad, but like a lot of things do not bother me.
Oh, okay.
Like, so I'm not a person of like detail, and a lot of things don't bother. They just don't bother me, right? The things that do bother me, I will tell you when it happens. But so when I hear people who are bothered by things that I would say are small, it's hard for me to take those things seriously, right?
Yeah.
It's hard for me to take those things seriously. Like, so if somebody, of course I don't want to share anybody's toothbrush, right? But somebody like using my towel, like I would just get another one. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't care. Like, okay, you use my towel, you know, I probably.
But what if you don't know that person used your towel?
I mean, like
a lot of times I think you probably would because it's sweat or damp.
But sometimes you know, the person may have possess this ability, like they do these things, but that's my problem. It's one thing when you see it, you can do something about it, but if you don't. So what was realized in our particular sessions was that I have a lot of personal space boundaries where you're crossing the line, you're interacting with things that is close to me physically in space, right? Which again, those can be overcome. You can talk about that. You can decide on a remedy for whatever. The unforeseen ones are the ones that's a little scary. That would just possibly come up. That was triggered by something way deeper than a towel or a pillow, right? Right. And you're like, then what do you
have
do?
Any examples of unforeseen?
Examples of like unforeseen?
Yeah.
Like I was saying, things that were triggered from traumas in childhood.
Okay.
Yeah. Things that are triggered from things that they may have suppressed from past relationships. Okay.
And then it comes up, and you're like, "What's going on?"
Like, what is this? Like, you may have never seen it in the relationship as long as you've been with the person, and definitely wasn't expecting it.
So, what is the remedy for that? I'm sorry, Tori. Go ahead.
So, one of the things I wanted to say when I get in a relationship is I write a journal. Okay. And every time I feel as though something's petty or I believe that was disrespectful, I write that episode down. Oh, okay. And then when it keep occurring, I present it to that person.
But do you think like that's keeping record?
Well, I think it's healthy. It's keeping record, but also it's healthy if someone loves you and want to be with you. Because once you present that to that person, that episode, they will see, well, like, hey, I never knew I was doing this or being disrespectful.
But do you bring it up each time it's happening?
No, she waits.
I wait. And then when
I wouldn't like that.
But still, I understand
keep going, but
I believe it's healthy when you have a journal and then you present it. You wait. You only do it if that episode come up like every month or every 3 months. Okay. You don't wait a whole year. Okay. But you notice in this pattern. Okay. So you know something within that person is going on. You know, but once you present it to that person, then they say, "Oh, okay. I really didn't know this was happening."
Sometimes they didn't realize it was so frequent.
So then they say, "Okay, well, let's do it together." Because a lot of times they don't want to say if I'm doing something. So now we have both of these journals. Now we come into a conclusion and looking at this. And then now we seeing that, okay, let me respect this person or respect this person's space. And I believe it helps. Okay. I'm telling you.
I think that it takes very mature people to do that. And I'm going to say why. First, a couple of things that just popped in my mind. The first thing that popped in my mind is that love doesn't keep a record of wrong, right? So, like, if I'm upset about something, I might not bring it up at that moment because I have to process it. So I do understand, like, processing things, but I don't know how I would feel if my, significant other would come to me 2 months later and have like 5 different episodes.
Okay, wait. Right? Before you even say that, now, if this episode had just occurred, okay, I am going to address it. Okay. Now, if it occurred again, I'm not going to address it. I'm going to write it down.
Okay.
Like, it depends on what it is.
So if it's a frequent forming
yes, exactly.
issue,
yes.
then you notice, okay, this is a pattern. I'm gonna start taking, you know, and then present it to the person. I can see it both ways, right? I know what you're saying as far as love, you know, you not keeping love in love. You don't keep a record of wrong. But I guess this is a tool that she has learned to approach, you know, and I can see it working. Me being the way I am for mature, I guess I'm not mature.
No. I'm not saying you're not mature. I'm not saying. A reason why I said mature people is because you have people that will decide, oh, she got a journal. Let me go write down everything.
That's what I'm saying.
So tit for tat.
No, but it's not tit for tat because I know a lot of people don't want to address with, you know, let me see my wrongs.
You may be coming with a sincere, something that you present to them.
Yeah.
But other people sometimes don't want to be hit. Oh, she came with a journal. Oh, I'm gonna get a journal on her.
Yeah.
You know, and then
that's fine.
when you present yours, they got this whole book, and that's why I said it would have to be a mature person, right? That would be
so at that point it would be not beneficial.
It's
at that
not
point,
beneficial, right?
Because it's just being petty.
Because that person is.
But
not
then again,
a lot of times, a lot of, like you mentioned before, it comes from it stems off your home, your upbringing. A lot of times, these issues when one is actually reacting to you know, and then they say, oh yes, they are. Disclose everything that happened in their home.
Okay.
And then you say, okay, thank you for, that person will say, thank you for helping me. I wasn't aware that I'm spilling something in my relationship, our relationship.
That was from previous.
Yes.
And then here's the other aspect, and this was another thing that we have talked about in our you know, premarital sessions, is communication. It all goes back to communication, right? So it's not so much some time of what's being presented, what's being said, what's being brought to the attention of the other person, but it's how it's being presented, right? It's with what body language, it's with what tone, it's with what facial expression, what energy that you're putting into bringing this topic or issue to the other person. So that is a big dynamic of
very critical.
It is. And any technique that you institute, you have to have what they call like ground rules. So you have to say, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to bring things that are you know, significant. And you can't just bring whatever. It has to have some real kind of like significance that you're writing in this journal. Because that was a technique that I used to do that was very similar to that in a relationship where we had like communication issues, where we were arguing a lot. And that was, I would say, if I bring something up, you're not allowed to. And if you bring something up to me, I'm not allowed to bring anything up to you at all, because you had the same opportunity to come to me and say, I want to talk to you about something, right? And so that's not a time that you get to say, well, I don't like when you do this. You can't do it. Right. So that made it where we were addressing only the thing that was brought up. Right. And so that was one of the ground rules that we had some other ones in place. No cursing, no raising your voice, no,
those are good ones.
Those were all in place prior to having a discussion. But I do think that communication is key. Listening to people, hearing people. But one thing I wanted to ask with the boundaries, and even with what you were talking about, like bringing it in the journal. Are those things brought up for the other person to change their behavior, or are some things compromised where you can accept that person's like boundaries, or accept what that person is bringing?
It's both. Okay. Both. Me is to help the person, heal that person, whereas heal me as well. Okay. Because we're trying to build a rapport. This big, beautiful relationship. Okay. So with me, it's help each other. Because a lot of times we're not aware of what we bring in these relationships.
So you feel like you're saying this person would need to, it's something you feel like the person should work on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. It's first of all making that person know how serious of an issue it is for me, right? Okay. How this thing really weighs in heavy, and my comfort level, and me, liking this or disliking this. It lets them know how it makes me feel on a regular basis, especially if this is something that's happened happening regularly.
Right.
You know, so if first of all it does that, and if that person cares about you, then they'll look and say, oh, well, this is something that really bothers him or her. Let me see how I can shift gears or not be so offensive or make my, you know, significant other feel uncomfortable or just some way that they don't want to feel. You know what I mean? So it's two things that it does. And then it definitely helps again when there's a third person that's able to see things unbiasedly, and they're able to, again, understand what you're saying and then kind of reshift it and present it to the person to let them see it from a different perspective, right?
A lot of times, when you are in relationships, if you have a journal or have that third person, the mediator, in there, a lot of times that person don't even see themselves doing this. Like if you present a journal, I'm like, oh, I really did do that, because sometimes people tape people too. You know.
I didn't say that.
But
I didn't do that.
Yes,
I got you on tape.
Well, on such and such day, at that time, that looks like you doing
So then when you have a third person, like a mediator, you know, like
Counselor.
Kim said, or a counselor in there, then they say, oh, was I really doing that? You know, they not aware
I think that's
of it.
good if because sometimes people do things and they say things, but their intention is not what a person will perceive their intention to be.
Okay.
So like sometimes you can say something, or you go, oh, I didn't mean it that way. You know what I mean? Like, or it might be your slang or something that you're doing and you don't mean it that way.
Or the tone.
Or the tone, and you might not mean it that way. But I think that's also like getting used to people like that. I used to date this guy, and he was a little, I wouldn't say aggressive, but it was in the way he talked. And he would always say, like, I'm not being aggressive. I'm just a man that's got a lot of testosterone, you know, whatever. And I'd be like, okay, you know, whatever. But for me, it was like, wait a minute now, who are you talking to?
But you know, that's a real thing, though.
It is
to
a
have
real
a
thing.
lot extra testosterone and it comes out. And,
Comes
that's
out
a real thing.
But for me, it was kind of like, I wasn't used to that. Yeah. So it was like, it put me in defense. And he would say, I'm not trying to respect you, but his testosterone be up here. And so I'm just saying, like, that was something that it would probably have taken me a long time to actually, I may have never gotten used to that. But the point that I was making is that in every relationship, I can see people's flaws. But a lot of times they may have flaws. And I said, you know what, that's just a part of it. I don't have to either bother with those flaws. Like, those flaws are who makes that person who they are, and I can see and I can live with those. So I think we just have to, when we choose people to go in long term with people, I think that we are saying we accept some of their flaws, right? And we're not. I mean, we have to figure out a way to not let some of those things bother us, right? That's another part of it. We have to figure out, how do I not be bothered by this, right? It doesn't mean everything. Like, you're not going to have like, well, you can just have 101 flaws and a new one tomorrow. No. I'm saying, like, because that's a flaw that I couldn't deal with, like that testosterone. I just couldn't, right? Because for me, I'm like,
you feel like you were always on the defense because he was coming at you.
I felt like it was aggressive.
Yeah.
And even though I do believe, honestly, you know, that he was not trying to be aggressive, but in those moments and at those times, and that elevated voice and, you know, not being able to really like get control. And it wasn't like he was like yelling in my face or something like that, but it was just
the tone and the energy.
That's something I could not deal with, right? So somebody else may be graced for that, but I'm not, right? So I'm just saying those, but the things that I can accept and move forward with, I feel like those things are not things that I'm looking for you to change about yourself.
Yeah.
Those things I'm okay with, like accepting. But do you feel like in premarital counseling, do you feel like you've learned anything new that you did not already know about this person? Or see it from a different perspective?
Yeah, I think perspective is it. Okay. So not necessarily things that I didn't know. And it depends. We've only had a couple sessions and some goes long and far and deep. You know, we're not looking for that. We already have a significant amount of time into the relationship. We just want to comply with the requirements, and we want to learn some tools and things that will help us further into our journey, you know. But I don't think it's been new things, but I think it's just when you tweak the perspective, it can be new, right? It can be new. So yeah. Yeah, because I'm not one for just don't throw a whole bunch of just newness and stuff that's unforeseen on me. Because I'm like, wait a minute, no, yeah, so you know. And that kind of thing don't happen overnight. It takes a minute for people to learn to relax and to be able to even share, things with someone that they don't know that well. So I wouldn't have expected that, but anything can happen. And I've learned in this life that pretty much anything can happen. So
so this is not, we offer deal breakers, but we had deal breakers similar to this last week. But would you, just posing a question, would you move forward or marry someone who was opposed to relationship counseling? Let's say there's no problem happening, there's no problem going on in a relationship. They're just like, I'm not into it. I don't believe in people in my business. I don't want that. Do you think that that's something that you would foresee, like saying, well, what if we get into a situation where we need to go to counseling and that person's just totally against it? How do you feel about that?
With me, that's really that could be a deal breaker.
That could be a deal breaker.
And then maybe not. I don't know, because I know someone who actually basically didn't want to go, but eventually they did.
Okay.
So I don't know, because I did say no, it wouldn't be. Then I say yeah, it would be. Because I think counseling in the Black community is really needed. So.
But I'm not promoting counseling, but for me, I could also see like you going, and what if the counselor is biased because they're human?
Oh,
yeah. You can switch to another counselor. Yes. That's the thing; it's not permanent.
Right.
That you're with this counselor or someone that's helping you. But here's what I think: anyone that's just totally 100% zero out on a fix to something or on the possibility to get something to a better level, that's a red flag to me.
But they might be like, look, my mama and my daddy was married for 60 years, okay? And they never saw a counselor. They just did this.
And guess what I would say?
What?
We not them.
That's what you would say?
It's what I would say. Yeah. We're in a different time.
So that would be a deal breaker for you?
I don't know that it'll be a deal breaker, but it's a red flag. Because why would you just be 10 toes down, absolutely not. I'm not doing it. I'm against it. I'm not, in any way, like shut it down before even giving it a chance. A lot of people have
stigmas about counseling, and even
that's the problem. That's what we're saying.
But even when it comes to relationships, it might feel as though like I don't need somebody to unpack me in a relationship.
But to me, that maybe, are you hiding something? Exactly. Like, what don't you want to come out? You know what I mean? For you to if it's something that could possibly be for the embetterment of us, being greater, bigger, just more concrete, why would you shut it down and before trying it? Now, here's the other side.
Yes.
If we've tried the few sessions and you're like, what, this is not for me. I tried it. I did what you want. That's different than you just from the jump saying, nope, not doing it. I'm not with it. I'm not interested. We not doing. That's different.
Totally
okay. Yeah, that's different. Now, if you tried it and you at least tried it and then say, hey, it's not for me. What you want to do, but I mean, if y'all have the same goals in the relationship, which is to make it as long lasting as it can, forever, right? And to make it as best as it can, like you have to be permanently in this with this person moving forward in life. Why wouldn't you want someone there that's able to help navigate you through that and give you tools that you can apply to the relationship to make everything just on a different level?
Make it healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that.
Well, but if you had that journal.
But see, I would never keep a journal. I would.
But a lot of people do. It's not my thing. But a lot of people swear by journaling. Okay. They really do. It's just not my.
It's healthy.
You think it's healthy?
Absolutely.
Did you have to train yourself to be able to implement that? Or were you like a writing person to begin with? Because see, I'm not.
When I was younger, I had a journal.
Okay, so it was already a part of
stopped.
You. Okay.
But in relationships, and I find that, people, I don't think they are intentionally doing things, but I think that they need to see themselves. Yeah. I'm going to start journaling.
But you know what? I'm going to be honest. I think the one thing we kind of talked about a little bit, like, a lot of things have root causes.
Right? Absolutely, like I mentioned.
A lot of things have root causes. And I think that, that's another topic for another day.
Oh yeah, that'll be a whole show.
Because people have root causes, like you said, fear, low self-respect, different spirits, all these different things people are dealing with, right? And they bring those things into relationships. But I don't know, because I am I'm not against counseling, but sometimes I think like this, I don't know, like relationship counseling is like a new thing. Well, it's not that new. It's not that new, right? But I do feel like people could be biased, and people like what's learned in a book may not really be helpful.
Let's wait. That might be another subject.
I mean, I'm just
but
saying,
let me tell you, when you get in front of before that person, all that book go out the door.
Okay.
Because you have to learn your own style when it comes to counseling. First and foremost, you have to listen to that person. You're not going to A/B what you learn, because a lot of people can be aggressive. Well, why you ask me this and that? You know, you got to learn that person.
Yeah.
You know, that body language, like Kim said. You know, what do they want? And a lot of times they want you to listen. So the books say A, B, and C, say this and that.
I'm talking about relationship. I'm talking about relationships,
yes,
not just.
I
believe in personal. Like I believe that personal counseling is okay. Like because that's one person seeking out, you know, and it's a one-on-one. It can be group, but you know, it's a one-on-one thing you can seek out.
But it's healthy.
Yeah, because it's the couple going there with a common goal, right? It's y'all as one or about to become one, going to this person.
I'm not talking about I'm not talking about pre-marriage. So
you mean after you're already married?
After you're already married and you know these issues arise and you want to go to counseling.
Well, yeah, post-marital counseling is popular too, because after you get married and all of the honeymoon's gone, you've unpacked all the gifts, you've done all that, all of the celebration is calmed down. It's a real life you have to live as one with this person. So to have that support, that guidance, that you know, those tools afterwards, I think is more important than pre.
Exactly.
I'm just saying some people may not be. I don't know if I'm that kind of person that would want to go to post-marital counseling.
If it's needed, you know, if it's needed.
I feel like well, we can't work this stuff out.
Some people just can't, Tiara. Because it wouldn't be a position, it wouldn't be a person there to do that, you know. But I think the person matters. Like, I'm more comfortable seeking that out from my pastor, you know, that and it being done from a biblical perspective than just going to a behavioral health person or someone. I don't want the world's perspective. I want what God said as far as my marriage. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think the person matters. It matters for us. Like what we're doing, it mattered that it was that person. And I could see doing posts too, because everything can be filtered out, figured out, and you know, in a few sessions.
Kim, when you're sitting before a counselor or a therapist, they got you in your own way, or your significant other. You're telling them what's going on, so they're not giving you like, okay.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But I think that people can be. I guess my fear would be I'm going and the person is biased, right? Because we're human. No matter how much you try to stay unbiased with something, a person is human, right? And so. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just only thinking about
if I would sense that, I would disconnect from it. But that's why I like the ones that are more like religion based, like Christian based, because you're taking it right from the word that we're already reading, the word that I already try to live by. You know what I mean? So if you're straying from that, then again, red flag. We have a problem. You know what I mean? So it just depends. It's different. It's many different types of counseling. You know,
I do think spiritual counseling is something I would be okay with, because I do believe that. I do believe that there are a lot of root causes for stuff, and those root causes that are spiritual causes, right? So I would have a problem probably just going to like a regular counselor, taking things from the world, because the world is constantly changing
and it's fickle,
it's right or wrong. And
exactly.
This year it could be this is the right technique, and next year this is the right technique. So that's what I was saying. Like those things, I don't know. I'm more traditional, how that would work for me. But if it was like spiritual based counseling, something like that, I could deal with that, because it should be helping me look at my spiritual self, right, and grow from that. But I mean, to
each his own, you know.
But at the end, though, we all should be improving on ourselves.
Yeah,
and if you're with somebody that you know does not want to communicate, go ahead.
Before you even get in a relationship, you know, work on yourself.
Do some self-work.
And guard your heart. Always guard your heart. Like, don't just jump. Don't be lonely and desperate and jump
thirsty
out and because then you'll get with these abusive people that you could have looked back and saw 25,000 red flags, right? You know, and because I could just imagine even being at that dinner, you know, like, why everybody looking at me like that? You know, what's going on? Like, you'll be able to see, like, something's wrong here, you know, something is, the tension here is off, you know, and you might be asking, what is all of that about, you know? But if you are taking it slow, if you're communicating, being open and honest, you know, because we grew up in a time where, I'm a little older, so we grew up in a time where my mother said, if you hit him and he hit you back, I don't want to hear it. You know, like, keep your hands to yourself, you know. But it wasn't like now where men are really being held responsible, and women, you know, because growing up, if somebody called the police, the man went to jail. But now, if somebody calls the police, they don't just take the man to jail. The woman can go to jail. They can take a look at who got a scratch, who got a, you know, who was hurt. If the man got a scratch, the woman is going to jail.
Yeah, if it has to be violence and all that toxicity, it's not worth it. It's not worth it on so many different levels. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would get away from it as soon as possible.
Absolutely, and also, like you said, those childhood traumas and stuff. Those things are coming out when you're younger and you're more passionate and you have like a lot of things you haven't worked out with yourself and you don't know yourself yet. You're more likely to be abusive, and you're more likely to strike out. Because I know, God forgive me, I wasn't right, you know, but I put my hands on people before, you know, and it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think we all, in maturity, we've all been guilty of certain things. But again, it goes back to what we've said many times in this show, communication. You were saying about when you were younger or younger people. From the young people that I'm very closely connected to, and we talk openly, frequently, right? I'm under the impression it's not a lot of real communication that's going on.
It's not.
It's certain questions I ask that they should know the answer to that they don't know about the other person. So I'm sitting there like, what do y'all talk about then? What's being discussed?
Right.
It can't just be physical interactions or good times. If you're really trying to get to know that person, there's certain questions and certain things you should know by this time in knowing that person, you know? So communication.
That is the key. And I agree with that. We're going to leave it at that because I do agree with communication is the key. A lot of times we don't know what right questions to ask.
Yeah.
But we should be able to get out there and Google. You know, we should. They have all kind of like dating games and questions and question books, and you really should be asking these questions because this will help you not have to go to counseling, and it will help you with not being in a relationship that is violent because people should be able to answer certain questions and even ask the person, how do you feel about people putting their hands on each other? You know, how do you feel about that? What do you feel about the situation? And their answer is, it may not tell you. Because they might lie. They might lie.
Transparency, that's the other thing.
It's like in a window somewhere. But you don't want that. But they may lie. But I do think that, like, when I was younger, my answer probably, I've never agreed with abuse. I've never agreed with it. But did I have the self-control?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's all about anger and self-control and really learning how to have control and discipline over your anger, over your emotions, over your feelings, because just because a person hits somebody doesn't make them a bad person, right? But we have to have control, you know? And I do think that counseling can help teach techniques of control, but I don't know.
You're still on the fence about counseling. We know.
It's okay. I mean, I think it depends on what you're going for.
Yeah.
Right. Spiritual counseling is always a good thing, you know. But you got to be careful with the spiritual counseling too, right? Because that was something I was also interested in, doing pastoral counseling. And when I went and I applied for the program and I got in the program and they accepted me, the first thing the person said was, "You'll never open a Bible here." And that's why I didn't go. And this was a predominant school in Maryland that had pastoral counseling, a master program.
They said you'll never open a Bible.
You'll never open a Bible here. This is not what this is about. And these are
but it was pastoral counseling.
Pastoral counseling. So
interesting.
It's very interesting. So they were like, "You'll never open a Bible in this course." And I was like, in this program. And I was like, "What?" Like, this is crazy.
That's confusing. That's very confusing.
And it's spiritual. So I think, like, and a lot of people get hired for chaplains and all those things like that. So maybe you have to have your own background and what you believe in religion.
I was going to say, because there's a difference in spirituality and religion. So they were probably taking it more from a religious direction.
I don't even know, because I didn't proceed with the program.
Yeah, that would have
because I was like, you know, what, really? And you know, this was after the testing. After say, okay, you're accepted.
Yeah,
you're sitting there. You're talking with the dean of the program. And when they told me that, I said, this is pastoral counseling. And so I'm saying it to say, like, I think it taught more like compassion. Yeah, it taught more like, you know, people maybe that are sick and different kind of things like that, but it wasn't really like biblically based. Yeah, so gotcha. You do have to be careful of the counseling that you're seeking out, you know, and who's providing that counseling. And then you have a lot of people that are Christian-based facilities, but they might not really. You have to just know, you know, what you're getting into and what you believe. But I do believe that everything has a root cause, because I think that we're spiritual, you know, beings first. Yeah, absolutely. You know, so I do think that people should seek to investigate themselves and pray. But my only issue and concern is like just gotta be very careful where you seek advice from. Absolutely. Know? And I think that if you're praying together and you're really trying to do things together, I do think that. But I guess that's why we're supposed to be equally yoked, right? Because that's a whole other situation right there. But yes, so I don't have any more. I think that just to round it up, communication. Yep. We talked about communication, however you get it, whatever is good for you, however you feel comfortable.
Working on yourself.
Working on yourself. And so she's a counseling advocate. She's a counseling advocate. I advocate, you know, spiritual counseling.
She's a little reluctant to say that, but yeah.
I did. All right. Well, thank you for joining our show today. And we will be back next Sunday at 5 o'clock on CoyoteMan Online, as well as CoyoteMan Network of She's Not Trendy.